I hate Halloween. I'm not even sure if hate is the term, but I certainly don't love it. It's just that I feel so uneasy when this time of the year comes. I've already researched the origins of this particular celebration. I've read every account on why it's celebrated, just so I could have a little bit of motivation. Receiving food in return of prayers for lost souls? I'm no cult specialist, if that's even the right kind of person for this matter, but that's just plain stupid. Sadly, in every way I think of it, I still find it illogical. Sometimes I find people above 10 or 12 years old who celebrate this nonsense. Highly immature. I intentionally ranted these things to my classmates and friends back when I was a kid, just so they wouldn't find it weird why I stopped dressing as a one-eyed skeletal pirate. Ever since I watched those videos, I never went out trick-or-treating again. I was 9 back then, when my friend Ramsey invited me over to his house. It wasn't the first time, nor was it the last, though it was the most memorable one. It was 2 days before the trick-or-treating started. Peeking outside our windows, you could either see big ladders being assembled so that Halloween decorations could be hung, or just simple wooden poles with pumpkins impaled on top of it, just for a cheap jack-o'-lantern. Halloween was significantly windy at our place that time, so people loved putting white sheets over coat hangers for designs. They'll simply dash red paint all over it, and voila! The Halloween decorations at my place may seem like they got all their ideas out of a 10 easy ways to make a cheap Halloween design video, but the effort they put on their children's costumes just sends smiles on everyone's faces. Ramsey told me to come over at 4 in the afternoon after school, but since I was just 2 blocks away from him, I went there at 7 in the evening after dinner. He was kind enough to lend me some of his previous Halloween costumes, and, in return, I promised to lend him mine. We planned a small mix and match and a sleepover. We dug through pieces of cloth, red, blue, orange, black, violet with glitters, white with black markings. All kinds of cloth were flying over our heads. But after hours and hours of going over plastic armors and his brother's old prom attire, we were on the verge of giving up and deciding that we should settle for ghosts. You know what? Ramsey paused and gasped as if he'd invented a cure for some terrible disease. I have a cool warlock outfit stacked downstairs. I raised my brow since we've already done barbarians a year before that. But since I wouldn't really settle for a blue cloth on top of my head and be a Pac-Man ghost, it was fine with me. I ran downstairs and greeted his mum while she was carving a golden honey-glazed chicken at the kitchen. His father greeted me and even tossed me a Butterfinger before I left and searched that costume. I followed the instructions as I was told to. Go downstairs and go straight at the narrow hallway at the right. After passing the door to the guest's room, you would see another door with a big lock. I turned right and saw the narrow hallway. It seemed like whoever designed the house forgot to put a light bulb in that hallway. It was dark, but not that dark. The light from the other parts of the house gave it slight visibility. I reached the key out of my pocket and opened the rusty lock. It seemed like it wasn't open for years, since it took me about 3 times to tug the lock open. Pieces of brown rocks dropped down and squeezed between my toes as I placed away the rusty lock. I opened the door, but the large boxes behind it prevented me from doing it all the way. It was dark inside, but there was enough light for me to seek out and reach to turn on the light switch. The room wasn't as big as I expected. Not really a room worthy to be closed down by a huge padlock. It wasn't big enough to make it look like a bedroom, but it wasn't small enough as a restroom cubicle either. The wallpapers were rolling down away from the walls and down to the dusty boxes that were scattered inside the cramped closet. You could see pieces of rat droppings mixed with dust all over the floor. Bumping on those boxes would send dusts into the air, so I held my breath and searched for a red cloth with black linings on its hood. My back ached after 20 minutes of searching through boxes and dust with nothing but old wedding antiques and dresses. When I was about to give up and decided to finally stand up erect, something surprised me. I was intrigued on how I never noticed the large poster upon entering the small storage room. The poster was just a plain picture of a plain white mask, and on its background was just pure pitch black. The mask had no particular emotion. It had sealed tight lips, it wasn't smiling, it wasn't frowning. The mask had black eyes that were printed perfectly, as if it were really hollow. Looking at them gave me slight chills. The poster seemed so realistic that the hair on my body couldn't keep themselves down. I struggled to remove my eyes from the poster, trying to change my attention on what was directly beneath it. Under that poster was a small box. Unlike any of my other boxes, it had less dust and seemed a bit new. I grabbed the box and it weighed heavier than I anticipated. Inside was what sounded like plastic cases that were hitting each other. I left the room and quickly rushed upstairs, quick enough so that I wouldn't be seen by Ramsey's mum or dad. "Are these game consoles?" I asked as I locked my friend's room while catching my breath. "I don't have game consoles," he replied confusingly. "Mum told me that games rot your soul." As he was ranting about how I never saw the costume, I was busy scratching the tape to open the box. I opened it and revealed several CD cases. Is this... Ramsey's cheeks grew red and his frustrated face changed. "It's porn," I whispered. We quickly turned on his TV and powered on his DVD player. We picked the first case, labeled First. CD number 1, entitled First. The film started out shaky. It was shot in a really poor quality. Remember those VHS tapes you and your family used to watch while they'd tease you about how silly you look on your first birthday? It was exactly like that. It was a few minutes into the video when we realized that the person who was filming it was trying to set up the camera on what seems to be a doorstep. On the back were glowing orange jack-o'-lanterns that lit up the dark, gloomy streets. 5 children, about age 14, were happily skipping towards the door. One had the typical ghost sheep costume, the other 2 dressed something from a famous cartoon, and the other 2 were dressed as dragons or something like that. After the door opened, the film stopped. CD number 2, Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo. The film started out as static. Then, it later revealed a table shot in black and white. Later on, we hear buzzing noises. We waited for about 5 minutes for something to happen. And that's when 10 hands appeared and laid down the table shot from above. It looked like it was owned by the 5 children who entered the last video. Then, after a few minutes, it blacked out. It turned on again. This time, it was colored. One child was trying to close his fist, but a much bigger hand was trying to keep it open. The hands who were trying to keep the children's hands open were wearing surgical gloves at the time. And it's kind of disturbing, knowing that it weren't the clean ones. Then the video stopped. CD number 3, Catch the Tiger by the Toe. The video started where the last video had left off. This time, There was soft humming in the background that sounded like the eeny, meeny, miny, mo rhyme. The adult hand, who was wearing the surgical gloves, appeared again and proceeded to tap each of the children's hands until the song stopped. The song ended and nothing happened. Out of nowhere, a hammer struck down on one hand. The impact was heavy, I could tell, as it forced the hand to retreat. Someone pulled it out again and placed it on the table, but the kid was fighting back. The camera was being hit and moved until it looked like it dropped to the ground. It was out of focus, but we could see a man pulling another kid's hair and dragging him somewhere. It had no sound, just silence. But before the video could end, there was a sudden outburst of crying and screaming from the video. The clip turned back and showed a red car. Tape ends. CD number 4, Pirate. This next film is a bit clearer. It seemed like it was shot in the early 2000s. A group of children, seemed like ages 10 to 12, dressed as pirates, went down to the same doorstep again. But this time, they seemed to have an adult with them. The camera angle from the first video was the same. The surroundings, the big trees swaying due to the windy environment, was still there as well. Then it ended right after the door opened. CD number 5, Shave. The kids from the fourth tape sat at a bench, restrained. They were each shaved until they had no hair left on their heads. Then some pictures of people we didn't know appeared. It flashed like it was sending some kind of subliminal message into our minds. The last few clips revealed fingers, whose nails were being pulled out by pliers. I cringed and held my fingers looking at such gore. My theory was that it was the adult companion's nails. Video fades to black. Distant screams slowly turned into muffled voices. Video ends without a trace of noise. CD number 6, Where the Candies Are. It showed only the red car, only that it was rustier. It seemed to be in a poorer condition than the first. Mud stains clearly showed at the wheels and the windows were stained with bird leavings and dust. Then it turned to black. Later appeared the words, "It doesn't stop after Halloween." All the CDs ended with gruesome, cringing, and unnerving scenes. Some just ended in black and showed the red car immediately. Each tape seemed to get more and more recent as it progressed. The tapes didn't only feature kids, but adults too. Sometimes it's not even on Halloween, judging from the lack of glittery outfits. I can't bring myself to remember all of what we watched, but we weren't able to watch the whole set of tapes that time. Each tape showed the message. We agreed to throw it out in the garbage and to never speak of it again. Our foreheads were sweating and our hands were cold. We rushed downstairs and decided to bring it back to the storage room, but we ended up going outside and burying them under the neighbor's tree. We dug with all of our might. Dirt slowly filled our nails. The adrenaline pushed us really far, trying not to get spotted by anyone. That night, I was crying like a baby inside my room. Whenever my mum came to visit and asked what was wrong, I would just reply with, "Nothing, Mum." I hate Halloween. It's immature and it's fucking nonsense. That's why I've been telling everyone. I've been hiding inside my house every time this shit comes by, because I know that that fucking red car in all of those tapes is just a few blocks away from our house. 5 years later, we moved away from that neighborhood. On the thought that it would lessen my anxiety and paranoia, it was a great neighborhood, silent, but a friendly one. We were instantly greeted with cookies and brownies by our neighbors. And I had a glimpse of the students that I'll be with inside my new school. I tried to contact my good old friend Ramsey while unpacking inside my new room, looking outside my window, enjoying a green view. Rams, I've just moved in, I greeted. You must have mistaken me for someone who gives a shit, he said jokingly. If only I was able to borrow that cool poster of yours. What poster? I rolled my eyes. The poster inside that storage room, with a pale mask in the middle. He became silent for a few seconds. Where exactly? He asked. You can't miss it. Right after you open the door, it's posted there, directly facing the doorway. He sniffed and took a deep breath. Dude, you sure it's directly facing the doorway? My heart dropped on the last sentences he uttered. There were no posters in that room, just a window.